meet with a lot of clients whose animals are very important to them. Something we've never talked about on the podcast. How do you provide to make sure they're going to be all right when you're gone? So in 2019, Karl Lagerfeld, fashion titan of Fendi, Chanel, passed away after a long illness, leaving no apparent heirs, but he was not without family. And it's reported widely that he made provisions for his favorite family member, Choupette. Choupette's a cat. She's a beautiful cat. And she now has her own apartment in Paris. And the former housekeeper for Karl Lagerfeld is now her owner. She has a manager. She's got almost 300,000 followers on Instagram. Not bad. My name is Jim Miskell. I'm an attorney in the state of Georgia. I've been practicing for more than 30 years and handling nothing but estate planning, elder law, probate, estate administration for more than a decade now. I give people advice all the time about how to set up their estate planning, what will work best for their family. This podcast, Let's Talk Estate Planning, I'm glad you're here. It's something that I do for educational purposes. I want people to know more about estate planning. I'm excited about estate planning. I can't wait to talk about it. I'm always thinking about it. It's for educational purposes, informational purposes. Hopefully you find it a little bit entertaining. I understand that not everybody's excited about estate planning as I am. However, I want to be clear, this is not legal advice because I'm not your attorney. I'm just some guy talking on a podcast. Keep in mind that legal advice happens when you sit down with an attorney in a room and you're paying for their time so that they can ask you a bunch of questions to make sure that they understand your situation and can give you good advice. You should meet with qualified, experienced attorneys to do your estate planning because there are just too many things that you don't know and too many things that even lawyers don't know if they don't do estate planning all the time. All that to say, this is not that. This is a podcast for information, education, hopefully a little bit of entertainment. I'm glad you're here today. And our topic today is how to provide for the animals that we care about. They may be pets, service animals, support animals. They might be working animals, hunting dogs, horses, any number of things. They're not always mammals. I've had clients that have had birds, different reptiles. So not always furry friends, sometimes feathered, sometimes scaled. Sometimes our animals have lifespans that rival human lifespans that might even be longer. And those considerations need to be taken into account when you're making plans to care for these animals. Today, we're going to talk about just some basic considerations and how to plan for animals. And I'll touch on there are some various legal avenues available, some constraints that may come into play as you make plans to make sure that Fluffy, Fido, whoever you care about, the way Karl Lagerfeld cared about Choupette, making sure that they get cared for in the way that you would like. And as is very common when we're thinking about trust planning, one of the first questions and one of the really important questions is who? Who's going to be responsible for taking care of this animal, your beloved family member here? For Choupette, it was the housekeeper that had been her au pair, her nanny, and now takes care of her. For Leona Helmsley, you may remember Leona Helmsley back in about 2007. She passed away. She had a dog that she cared a lot for. His name was Trouble, and it was a little bit of trouble for the estate. She and her husband had a very large estate, reportedly billions of dollars, about $4 billion, and the vast majority of it went into a charitable trust that's supporting many good causes in and around New York City. But for the dog, she makes this $12 million set aside. Eventually, there was litigation over her estate. Some question as to whether or not she was really all with it when she made her plans. That was legal terminology. Whether or not she was really firing on all cylinders. Again, legal terminology. When she made the plans, eventually the gift for the dog got reduced to a mere $2 million for the dog. But that $2 million supported bodyguards. Apparently, she was not always the most loved person. Apparently, that must have carried over to the dog. There were reports that there were some threats made, those sorts of things. But in addition to the vet care, the nutrition, all the things that the dog needed to live, was also sort of this bodyguard component. So for folks like Leona Helmsley, it was easy. We know we need corporate bodyguards. For Karl Lagerfeld, it's the housekeeper au pair who, again, Choupette is already close to. What about you? Well, here's a story from my own family. My sister recently she had to be on crutches for a couple weeks. Her dog Posey was just a little too much for her to handle while her leg was healing. She's really lucky, though, because for some number of years, when she goes on vacation, Posey's been able to go stay with her son, my nephew, who's got a couple dogs of his own. Posey fits right into the pack. Everything's great. So for my sister, it was a pretty easy decision because she didn't feel like it was really going to stress the dog out. This is what's on the mind of most of my clients when they're considering who is it that's going to take care of my animal after I'm gone. Very often, and I think the best choices are often people that already have experience with the animal. They've already been over to walk them or to pet sit them during vacations, to care for them and have some relationship with them already. Because although pets can be intuitive and we feel like they're intelligent, it's difficult to have a complicated conversation with them explaining what's going on. So although they may be smart as a whip and they know everything you're saying, it can be disruptive and it's difficult to explain to a pet what's going on when their loved one, when they're human, is sick or has died. So the effort that I see is to keep as much continuity as possible. And I think that's well done. Many of my clients who have pets that they dote on in this way, if I can say it that way, that they dote on in this way, they have strong relationships with their veterinarians, with where they board, with where they go for play dates and their dog walkers. So they've already got a cast of characters to choose from. Very often it's a family member, a son or a daughter that already has a relationship with the animal. Those are great choices to be the caregiver, the caretaker for the animals after death. But as always, when we talk about testamentary trust planning, one of those first questions is who's going to do it? Who's going to be the trustee? And again, this is to veer back into the legal. We're talking about testamentary trust planning. Very often we talk about living trusts, those trusts that serve our purposes while we're living. And testamentary trusts, just as a refresher, testamentary trusts are there to provide guidelines and rules and sometimes guardrails for the gifts that we leave when we die. Last will and testament, testamentary trust. Testamentary trust means I'm dead. These are the rules. So that's what we're talking about here really is testamentary trust planning for your animals when you're gone. Not to the exclusion of making sure they're well cared for if you're disabled. Now, the story about my sister and her son living in town where the dog was already very comfortable going, that's a chip shot. That's easy. But I think it's worth some consideration now. Now, most of my clients, they're already thinking in terms of making plans for their disability, should it occur, and their death when it occurs. And keep in mind that that's the way it is. Some of us are going to be disabled. All of us are going to die. And estate planning is making sure that what we care about is provided for to the extent we can. And my clients that are already this far along, they're already thinking about who's going to take care of the animal if I'm not able to, if I'm hospitalized, laid up, that sort of thing. And so that goes hand in glove with what we're talking about with the testamentary trust planning. So that's the first thing to think about is how, and then also how much to fund with. Hey, Jim Miskell here. Sorry to interrupt the episode. Hope you're enjoying today's content. A lot of times when folks are thinking about this kind of thing, questions spring to mind. If you have questions, we like to do some question and answer episodes. So you can go to our website, letstalkestateplanning.com, and shoot us a message and say, hey, on the podcast, I'd like Jim to cover this on the next question and answer session. Or if it's hitting closer home, especially if you're a Georgia resident, of course, we can't give legal advice on the podcast because it's not specific for your situation. But if you got a situation that you need to handle, it's important to get that done. So let's talk estateplanning.com is how to contact the office. I'd love to talk with you about the specifics of your situation and make sure your estate plan is everything that your family should have it be. In the meantime, we're going to go back to the episode. Thanks for tuning in, and I hope to talk to you soon. So once you've decided who the caregiver or caretaker is going to be for the animal, the next thing is ascertaining how much in the way of assets you want to designate to care for the animal. What are we talking about there? We're talking about they got to eat, they got to have good veterinary care. Are there other things that you want them to have that you think they enjoy, that they benefit from, that enriches their lives, that you want them to have? And factor all that in. You may have $12 million laying around, like Leona Helmsley did, that you want to toss toward an animal trust like this. You may have an animal who, like Choupette, she may be financially independent at this point in time. She's doing the photo shoots. She's got the social media presence. I mean, gosh, almost 300,000 followers. She may be supporting herself at this point in time. Although she's got a dedicated human, Lagerfeld designated, and has funded. So you may not have that kind of money or those kind of staffing abilities, but you've still got the resources you have to support your animal. If you don't have somebody in your family who's going to be a natural taker for the animals, your son or daughter, your niece or nephew, your brother, your sister, no one to step in, a lot of my clients will use their vet as a good filter to place the dog. Now, I would not do this without talking with your vet. I've got some clients who have discussed it with their veterinarian and say, I don't really have a good place for Bingo. After I go, can I have him boarded with you as my trustee searches for a new owner? And will you help in that process? And some are all in and happy to do it. Others, not so much. Many of my clients have rescue animals that they found at shelters, and they're associated with those shelters. So a lot of my clients who do have these pets also do charitable giving. We've got a great outfit near us. Fur Kids is what our local, one of the best ones locally is called. And they help place and rescue animals all the time. And they are a great resource, especially for folks that work with them in their charitable endeavors. And so they're great. So you can associate with a charitable association. What to do brings up the next point is you've designated a person, you've designated the right amount of money, you've given the instructions to carry out your wishes. This is how I want my animal friend cared for. When they pass away, what's to be done with the rest of the bequest that you've made for them? Some folks say, well, I want your human to have it. The human that I've designated to take care of you, they can have it. Some folks say, no, this is, I've made a gift to them that's independent of their care for my animal. When the animal passes away, when Bingo goes, I want all that money to go to Fur Kids or to go to WeRateDogs.com. Tell your dog I said hi. You got a wide range there, but many of my clients who are concerned about pets are also concerned about making charitable donations to support animal causes. And I think that's a great tandem, a good way to do both. Legally, and I hate to go back to the law because it's just not very exciting. Legally, in the past, trusts have been said to require a human beneficiary, that you can't have a non-human beneficiary of a trust. And that's blocked some of the obvious planning. You wouldn't make, for example, your dog Bingo, you wouldn't make them the beneficiary of the trust in these jurisdictions that don't recognize it. And there are still, there are many out there that do not recognize a non-human beneficiary. So let's talk about a couple legal considerations. Trust law has not always been friendly to this idea of making non-human beneficiaries legitimate beneficiaries. You can't do it, was the way the state of the law used to be everywhere. It's still true sometimes. As I said earlier, as I may have mentioned, Georgia, we have a section in our trust code allowing for pet trusts, what we call pet or animal trusts, and it's a specific authorization under the code section. What if you don't have those? Or what if you think I may be moving from a state that has it to a state that doesn't? I want to make sure this thing works no matter where I go. Well, there are various techniques that have been developed over the years to do it. And essentially what you can do is make a human the beneficiary of the trust who you designate as the caregiver. And they get their benefit from the trust is contingent upon their care for the pet. And is commensurate enough to reimburse them and also to compensate them to the extent you think appropriate. When you have that situation, sometimes you might want to separate the beneficiary and the trustee role so that the trustee acts as a monitor for the human beneficiary who's actually the caregiver and can distribute so long as the care for the animal is appropriate. In the jurisdictions where they've recognized that pets or animals, whether they be service or support, or even working animals who are beneficiaries of trust, where that's authorized to be okay, in those situations, they've allowed usually for any interested party, anyone who's interested in the animal's welfare, to raise a concern. And that's one of the concerns about having a non-human beneficiary, is that who's to watch this and who's to monitor it? Who's to say that your dog Bingo isn't getting treated the way you laid out? Now, with Choupette, Karl Lagerfeld's cat, with Leona Helmsley's dog, there are a million people around watching and keeping an eye on that. So they've sort of broadened that up within some of the statutory schemes that have authorized this. But even absent that, there are ways to structure this. That's the kind of thing that you'll need to discuss with your experienced estate planning attorney, because as I always come back to, or I try to, that the best way to get estate planning done that's solid and is going to work when times are tough is to meet with somebody that's got some experience doing it. Because even brand new attorneys or even seasoned attorneys that don't do estate planning, there are pitfalls and speed bumps to the planning that if you're not familiar with it, you might not be able to avoid. That's why you should work with somebody. And that's why I don't do a bunch of other kinds of law, because I don't have experience in those other areas of law that I do doing this. And so that's just another encouragement to meet with somebody who you like and who you trust, who, as I always say, after you ask them a question and they say it depends, they stick around to ask you all those other questions to fill in the things that it depends upon. Because when a lawyer tells you it depends, they're not being smart alecky. What they're telling you is that, well, that could be a complicated question. Let me get some more information from you. If you're in the state of Georgia and you want to consult about your estate plan, about what's right for you, your family, and your four-legged or finned or feathered loved ones going forward, you can go to our website, letstalkestateplanning.com, same as the name of the podcast, and I would love to consult with you. We do a lot of virtual consultations as well as in person, and would love to see you. If you got a question, something you'd like to see on a future episode, leave that in the comments below. We'll try and get to that. We may be due for a frequently asked questions episode coming up before too long, and we'll try and include those as well. Thanks for your time today talking about the animals that we love and making sure that we've made provisions for them that are actually enforceable and not just honorary, because that's the designation that they get in these jurisdictions that don't allow non-human beneficiaries. They're called honorary trusts, which means you just hope that that person honors your wishes. And your dog Bingo deserves better than that. Till next time, I'm Jim Miskell. Thanks so much for spending time with me today.